What's up? Hey, what's good? What's poppin'? I am Miss Berry. Welcome back to my channel. I appreciate you guys for sliding through and coming to kick it with me. As you guys can see from the title, this is going to be a first time reaction for me. I haven't come across a video like this yet, but from what it says, before Roe versus Wade, there were the Janes, which was an underground abortion network. So I'm pretty interested because if you guys are familiar with my channel, then you know that I kind of tapped in a little bit to Margaret Sanger. Was that her name? Margaret? I know her name was definitely Margaret. I think her last name was Sanger. But anyway, I tapped in a little bit, to the Planned Parenthood, So I'm pretty interested to see this, and I'm not gonna do too much talking, y'all. Let's go ahead and get straight up into it. All right, y'all. Let's press play.
And next to the United States, where the Supreme Court will soon make a final ruling on Roe versus Wade. The Janes is a new HBO documentary taking us back to the late 60s and early 70s when abortion was illegal and the Jane Underground Collective provided a space for pregnant women in Chicago to seek help. Heather Booth founded Jane in 1969 when helping a friend find an abortion doctor. Jean Galitzer-Levy was a Jane member, arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit abortion when the clinic was raided in 1972. The charges were dropped when the court decided on Roe v. Wade. They joined Hari Srinivasan to discuss Jane and life without Roe versus Wade.
Thanks, Bianna. Welcome to both our guests, Jean Galitzer-Levy and Heather Booth. So Heather Booth, who was Jane? What was Jane? What kind of services did you provide?
Jane became an underground service to provide caring support for women who wanted to end a pregnancy before Roe. When three people talking about preparing for an abortion was a conspiracy to commit a felony. But the women who were involved in it were involved because we cared about other women, we cared about building a caring community and treating others as we might want to be treated. And though I've never faced the situation myself, people were in such need. Some were suicidal, some took lye or did damage to themselves. Some ended up on these septic abortion wards in hospitals because of the injury that they faced. So we were a response to that problem and that need.
I also want to add in, this era here, the birth control pill was not available until, 1972. You couldn't sue for sexual harassment until 77. You could be fired for being pregnant until 1978. Spousal rape wasn't even a criminal act in all 50 states till, I want to say, 1993. So what were the...
That was the year I was born. Wow, 1993. This is right here. It's just, the more I watch videos like this, guys, excuse me, as you know, I'm trying to expand my mind here, but the more I watch videos like this and, I learn things that I didn't know, or, I learned something that was the opposite of what I thought it was, just different stuff. It just makes me shake my head more because it's like the type of world we live in. Do any of you guys ever just have moments just at random in a car, in a house, just no matter where you are? Just random moments where you can deep think. I said deep. I was about to say deep, but think yourself into a deep, a really deep thought of how you're here and how the world is and all types of stuff. I just think that we all, have had moments like that. And it doesn't amaze me, but it's just the more I hear, the more of the struggles and stuff. It's just so much that we don't know. And, so much that we're still learning because it's always something, new to learn every day. But it just makes my heart hurt because even if it happened 100 years ago, just to hear about it and just the things that we endured, over time, that it just makes my heart hurt. That's pretty much how I can put it.
Reasons, Jean, that women were coming to you. Why? What were their options before they called that number?
They had very few options. middle-class women who had sympathetic doctors and medical reasons could go before a hospital board, essentially, and beg for an abortion. And occasionally that would be granted and they could have a legal abortion. But by and large, there were no options that were not clandestine, really. When I was looking for birth control, somebody slipped me a little piece of paper with the name of and phone number of a doctor who was willing to give birth control to single women. It was that, even that was clandestine. There were no options, and that was the problem. And I can't emphasize enough what a tremendous thing it was for these women, for the women who came through Jane, to trust us. They didn't know us. They had no way to know us. Hopefully, some had heard of us from other women who had been through the service, but they were taking a terrible risk. They didn't know whether they were going to get these mafia-associated abortionists, somebody who didn't know what they were doing. And we trusted them back. To be in the position of having 3 or 4 children and no money to have another, or in an abusive relationship where you would be tied to someone forever, if you had a baby, was terrifying.
I'm going to set up a clip, if I can, to try to give people in our audience in 2022 some semblance of an idea of what that era was like.
We were very aware of the fact that women were suffering in a variety of ways because of abortion being against the law. Women did awful things out of fear and desperation. We knew that some would be injured, some would die. Many people around them, including children that they already had, would suffer. So we thought, we can be of use. You need an abortion, we'll help you. Call this number and ask for Jane.
Jane, tell me a little bit about the kind of the practical nature of what happened after that phone call.
The answering machine would say, "This is Jane of Women's Liberation. Please leave your name, your phone number, and the date of your last period." And then they would be called back and more information would be elicited by one of the women called a callback Jane. And then once we had all that information, we had the index cards and we would pass them around and people would take the cards of women who lived nearby so that it would be easier for them to reach you. And people that you thought you could counsel, then you would call them and invite them into your home and you would explain what the procedure was. You would elicit any other information. We also distributed literature. We distributed the early copies of Our Bodies, Ourselves and a little booklet called the Birth Control Handbook, hopefully so they wouldn't have to come again. And once they had been counseled, they were scheduled and then they were given an address. Whew. They went to that address. Those were usually borrowed apartments where the women would wait. It was often a rowdy environment with these little kids running around, and we would have snacks because we were women and we had to feed people. And then from there, they would be driven to what we call the place. Those were often borrowed apartments, though eventually we did rent a place that we could keep set up. Otherwise, we would have to go in and we would have to set up a whole place and put on new sheets on the bed and sterilize the instruments and all kinds of things. But we could keep that apartment ready. Yeah. And that was where the abortion was performed. We tried to make the atmosphere unmedical because medicine then was so paternalistic. We had bright Marimekko sheets, and we always had an extra woman in the room who could hold a hand.
Mm,
who could talk people through it.
okay.
So while the abortionist was busy doing the procedure, someone could explain what was going on, assure them that the discomfort would last only a certain amount of time, let them know what to expect, and just be there to have your hand squeezed, sometimes very hard.
Yeah.
And that was the procedure. Then they were driven back to the front, and they went home with their family.
Heather, how was this organization able to get away, so to speak, with something that was underground? I mean, an underground organization still able to perform some 11,000 abortions is pretty
Ooh,
stunning.
yeah.
I think there are at least two reasons that happened. One is it was underground. We weren't talking about it. So we just continued with the work. The other is that we always thought the police knew about it. When I was counseling people early on, a woman who was married to a policeman came in with her daughter who was needing an abortion and was so grateful to get this support. And though I didn't ask, I had every reason to believe that it was the policeman who directed his wife about where to go.
Possibly.
So we think that it actually was a service that was useful in the society. And because it hadn't been politicized and made a partisan issue and hadn't been funded for the attack on it.
Who's Dr. Mike? And who are the people that were training to do these procedures?
So we were always looking for other people, other doctors. That's the way we thought, who could perform the procedures. And one of the people that we found, and each time we found someone, we talked to the women afterwards. We assessed whether they were good. Sometimes doctors would hit on the women. We came across Mike.
Heard that a lot.
As one of the people, and then we were very happy with him.
I don't mean to just pause it, but since you said that, it's just crazy how, we go to the doctor to get checked out for, medical reasons or different reasons. And you go to the doctor and then, boom, what do you know? You're getting hit on, or boom, what do you know? This, that, and the other is happening. Like, that's not why we go to the doctor at all. I mean, honestly, it's like I know that we have men who are OBGYNs. I can't even say it right. But I know that, but just for me, it's just, I don't know. It's just something about another male looking at my parts that's not my husband, like, I don't know. I mean, if I absolutely that was the only doctor or the doctor or whatever, then yeah, I wouldn't just turn down to help. I'm not, just saying, it's just preference wise. I would just prefer a woman. I don't know. I mean, I know everyone in the world is not like that. All doctors and, people are corrupt. Everybody's not corrupt. Like, I know that, but
did a good job. The women had a good experience, and he was an engaging, voluble person. He would talk to the women and he would reassure them, which was, as I said earlier, not common. So that we were very comfortable working with him, and eventually he became very good friends with some of the women in the service. And at some point, he was interested in getting out of the business. He didn't want to do it anymore. And we had discovered that he wasn't a doctor. He had just learned how to do this. And one of the women in the service who had become close to Mike said, well, if he can do it, I can do it, and persuaded him to teach her. Mm-hmm. And, learning a procedure like this, it's a relatively simple procedure. So first one woman learned, and then she taught another, and then she taught another, and then and women would, for example, I had gotten to the point where I assisted. So first I watched a woman put a shot into the cervix to relax it. And then she showed me how to do it. And then I did it. And I learned how to put in a speculum in a way that was comfortable for a woman. Not something that I'd ever done, but you watch and you learn, and then you try it, and then you do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it
Visual
just
learning.
evolved. And what happened was that because we were doing it ourselves, we then had control.
Mm-hmm.
We could set the price. We could set how many we could do, which got to be a lot. I mean, really, we were doing almost 100 a week. We averaged about $40 to $50 per person, which was enough. And that once we had that control, it meant that we could make abortion accessible to all those people.
I want to set up a clip here of what happened when New York decided that these procedures could happen in that state. So let's take a look.
When New York legalized abortion in 1970, that meant that all those white college students who could see themselves getting on a plane and flying to New York and getting an abortion and flying back did that.
Yeah. Chicago O'Hare. That's not far from me, y'all.
That's
about a
what really
30-minute, 45-minute
changed the
drive.
Demographics of true culture.
That's the way it used to look back then. Oh, I mean, I love to see, especially like the areas where I was born in Indiana, but I was raised in Georgia. My dad and my whole dad side of the family, for the most part, is from the South, but also from Chicago. So all of my siblings on my dad's side was just born and raised in Illinois. So, and I even lived in Illinois for a short period of time. So, it's just interesting to see how things were back in the day compared to how they are now.
It was really the lower middle class and the poor women who were stuck. If you have other kids, if you don't have the money, it was hard to do.
A decent one-bedroom apartment in Chicago was going for about $150 a month. Illegal abortions cost between $500 and $600.
Women of color were just kind of on the outs because they couldn't afford it. And to me, that was just outrageous.
Jean, tell me a little bit about how things changed after New York legalized abortion. What was revealed?
After New York, women were angry. They weren't apologetic anymore. They said, if a woman in New York can do it, why can't I? And they were angry. And they stopped justifying themselves, which I thought was wonderful. They realized that they should have this right.
And if the law is overturned, if Roe is overturned, what it will mean is that people with financial means, with family supports, with communities of support, with education about the possibilities of what's available to them, it's quite likely they'll find a way to end an unwanted pregnancy. But for the women who are poor, who are more isolated, who are less connected to the resources that would be needed, financial and otherwise. So poor women, women of color, women in areas away from city centers.
Everybody.
They will be the ones into forced pregnancies, into harder lives. And their lives and the lives of their families are likely to be diminished.
Heather, I want to ask you, here we are today, decades later, after the work that you started, and there's a fairly decent chance that Roe v. Wade is either significantly weakened, if not overturned outright. And I wonder what goes through your mind. Are there going to be other Jane-like operations if that happens?
There already are operations like this. Many things have changed since those early days. And just as there are 26 states that are ready to push back against reproductive freedom if Roe is overturned in whole or in part, there are also states that will become sanctuary states: New York, Illinois, California, and others. And there are people setting up above ground as well as underground transportation, medical care. A lot of the care is also now done by medication. Probably over half the abortions provided now are medically provided. And the biggest thing that's changed, though, is that we have all changed. Right now, over 80% of this country believes that a politician should not come between a woman and her physician on making this most intimate decision of our lives. This is overwhelmingly has popular support.
Yeah.
A large majority of the country really doesn't think that Roe should be overturned. And people realize that this is a story of what can happen to their sister, their cousin, their friend, can happen to them.
Yeah.
So there will be protest, there will be organization, there will be new services provided, and we also need to come together and drive this issue into the elections to say that the politicians and the courts need to represent the popular will and build a more caring society for the future.
Yeah.
The film is called The Janes. It is available now on HBO and HBO Max. Thank you both to Heather Booth and Jean Gallagher-Levy. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Interesting. I'm looking at all the different screens, y'all. Don't mind me. But we're going to end that video right there. It was pretty long. Well, it wasn't that long. 17 minutes and 53 seconds. But it was definitely pretty interesting because I didn't know anything about, the Janes or their abortion network or anything. Like, this is something new. Like, of course, I know about Planned Parenthood and this and that, but I honestly didn't think it was any other abortion networks or, things like that out there. And I know that, what I'm learning about the history of Planned Parenthood is, some crazy things. So it seemed like the Janes were on a more, positive path with the people. I didn't just think that they were burdens or just think that, that's another story for another day, y'all. I'm thinking in my mind, I'm comparing Planned Parenthood and this, like, just in my head from the things so far that I've heard, that I've seen, that I've researched. And yeah, so that was pretty nice to know that, it's definitely people out in the world that care enough to do the right things. I know it's a lot of people that's against abortion, that don't think this, don't think that. And it's crazy because it's a lot of people who aren't women, who can't bear a child, who have these opinions the most, like trying to tell us what to do with our bodies and this or that. But anything can happen. People can be in situations where, God forbid, but they're raped, or just certain crazy situations that you can't really seem to explain to anybody, or you might not even want to talk about. But like, it's just for your own personal reasons. Everybody has their own personal reasons. Like, I do understand a child is the gift, and a child is a blessing. And it's just sometimes it's hard to, wrap your head around, like, oh, why would a person, but you just don't know what if someone is going through, what they've been through, how they got here, all of the above, like, you don't know. So that's the reason why I would never judge, me, I would never judge them in that aspect. But anyway, y'all, let me get out my head. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this reaction video just as much as I enjoy reacting to it. Y'all, the original video will be links in my description box down below, just in case you guys want to check it out on your own time. Also, y'all, don't forget to comment down below. Give me more things that you guys want to see me react to on this channel. If you want to talk about this a little bit more with me in the comments, then, just comment it down below. Like, I I just love chatting with y'all. So you know, it's a lot of different opinions out here, and I just want to hear them. Also, don't forget to thumbs up, like up this video, y'all. And if you are not subscribed to my channel, then on the way out, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button and ring that bell, so when I drop a new video, you will know, you won't miss it, and you will be right here. It don't cost nothing, it's completely free. It takes about maybe 2 or 3 seconds. But anyway, y'all, as always, I appreciate you guys for coming through and just to kick it with me, and until next time.